Hi, I'm Steve Larson from Little River Marine, and I'm here to introduce you to the exciting sport of recreational rowing. Rowing is becoming one of the fastest growing fitness sports today, and for good reason. One, rowing combines a recreational activity with a full body fitness program, highly skilled. As a matter of fact, doctors now recommend rowing as the #1 full body aerobic and cardiovascular fitness program available today. None better. Two, rowing requires a minimum of skills to achieve, no matter what size, age, or limitation you may have, yet will continue to be a challenge as you grow in your rowing abilities. Three, and probably most important, rowing is fun. Rowing puts you in a unique and refreshing atmosphere far from the maddening crowd, allowing you to achieve both mentally and physically your fitness goals. What we hope to accomplish today through this video is lesson #1, learning how to row, ensuring that you'll have proper habits from day one to ensure of a lifetime of performance and pleasure in the sport of rowing. Before we go on with learning how to row, we'd like to first talk about terminology of a rowing shell. Out here at the bow of the shell, you'll notice a fiberglass decking over a strong, rigid fiberglass hull. This ensures more recreational, more durability while rowing. As we come up into the cockpit area, you'll see a full reverse splash guard or coaming. This ensures for a much drier ride. For instance, should the bow dip into a wave, the wave will roll along the decking, hit the coaming, and roll off, keeping the inside of the cockpit much drier during choppier conditions. As we come into the cockpit area, you'll see a rib configuration, which is the main support system for an open cockpit shell of this type. Located in the second and third rib area is the seat tracks for the seat to roll on. They are at an incline to ensure proper power while rowing through the sequence. The sliding seat configuration actually clips onto the seats, rolls back and forth in a very smooth motion. As we come to the main rigger support system, you'll see a pair of riggers attached to each side of the shell, which are basically your outboard riggers to hold the oars. At the end of each rigger is an oarlock which swivels around a pin, a solid stainless pin. Important for rigging to be very rigid and very stiff, allowing more power per stroke. Down towards the third rib, we see the foot assembly, which you'll notice we use Velcro straps to strap the person in, allowing for free exit should the boat be flipped over. We also have full adjustment in the foot assembly to allow for the height of the person rowing. As we go to the end of the shell, you'll see the open cockpit area under the stern decking, which provides storage not only for long-distance trekking and extra gear, but also to store your oars while transporting your shell. We'll refer back to the terminology as we go through the rowing lesson. I'd like now to get started. Tracy, if you're ready, come on over and we'll get things rolling.
Hey.
Okay, to get started, there are 3 adjustments that you want to make to a rowing shell before you head out to the water, basically to fine-tune the boat to your size and stature. The first adjustment we want to make is the height of the riggers off the water. As you row, your hands actually overlap each other. What we're going to teach you is a left over right overlap method. That's the method that's been used for many, many years. The Olympics use that method. So we're going to start you right with the left over right method. The thing to remember is whichever hand is on top when you're pulling, we're doing left over right, the corresponding rigger should be higher. So if I'm going to do a left over right motion, I want the left rigger higher than the right rigger. The way to make that adjustment is with these wedges, right in these black wedges that you see along the sides of the boat. They are in a wedge shape. If you'll notice, you've got a fat side and a thin side. We can use the wedge like this against the boat, and that'll lean the entire rigger down. We can turn the wedge and put it this way against the boat. That'll lean the rigger up. Or we can use 2 wedges, one up and one down, and have a flat out. So there's a lot of adjustments that you can make. The key to remember is basically whichever hand is on top, that corresponding rigger should be higher than the other one. Otherwise, the boat would lean and you'd be rowing like this in the water, and you would eventually row in an arc and head back to shore. So that's basically what we're doing, is we're setting the adjustment so the boat will lay flat while one hand is on top of the other. What we've done then basically is set this left rigger a little higher than the right rigger so the boat will lay flat in the water. The second adjustment we want to make is, you'll just notice that I had a wrist over wrist motion. We want to be sure that the hands come directly over top each other, as if your hands were tied behind your back. You want that same feeling every time you pull in towards your stroke. So the way to make that correct adjustment is on the oar. As you'll notice on this oar, there is a white sleeve, this white part here, and then this is called a collar or a button. So the adjustment that we will make is to move this button somewhere along this sleeve to make sure that these two grips come directly over top each other. The time to make this adjustment is after we've put the riggers on. We go ahead and slide our oar down in, and we go ahead and slide the oar out until it butts up against the oar lock, part of the reason why it's called a button. And then what we do is we check this grip to make sure that it is directly over the center of the shell. When the two oars are coming right over top each other, you'll notice that they are adjusted so my wrist, one wrist is over top the other. What I would do is, if these were too far in and I was crisscrossing, I would move this collar down this sleeve. If they were too far out and I was rowing way out here, I would move the collar closer to the shell. So all you do is drop the blade into the oar lock, slide them out, make sure that it's directly a wrist over wrist motion when the blades come over, when the grips come over top each other, and then tighten these buttons. As you see, I've already tightened this and set the rigger, so we're ready to row. The third adjustment is setting the foot assembly for the length of your legs. We'll do that after we go ahead and put the boat in the water, because you have to set in it to make the proper adjustment. Okay, just bring it my way. Okay, I got it. If you want to grab me the oars. Go ahead and hand me that other oar. There's a proper way to put your oar inside your oar lock. What I basically do is make sure that everything is pointed towards the feet. I take the oar lock and point it towards the feet. I take the blade and make sure it's down towards the feet, and I just bring the two together. You'll notice if I slide this oar down, down, down towards the end of the blade, it'll just drop in nice and easy. Then I can go ahead and slide it on out till it drops in. I go ahead and drop the gate and tighten the ship's wheel nut, is what we call it. Now, one thing you want to be sure is that this oar spins freely inside this oar lock. Should this feel tight, then what you can do, there's an adjustment that you can make. You can pull this gate up, you can slide this nut out, and you'll see in essence what that does is pull this arm out to give this more freedom to spin freely. So we would check that. We go ahead and spin this out a little bit, go ahead and drop back down in. That gives me a little more freedom here to make sure this turns freely. Okay, if you want to come on down around and get to where I am right here, sandy once you get down there. Okay, I'm going to crawl over there. One thing we want to do here, let this come around in front of you. We want to bring these two blades together so we have both oars touching the water like so. Okay. Lesson number 1 basically involves 4 techniques, what I'm going to teach you today. These 4 basics are enough for you to be able to go ahead and row on your own, be able to solo. All of rowing is based on these 4 techniques. It's basically from here on out fine-tuning and practicing these 4 things. Number 1, how to get in and out of the shell. Number 2, how to balance the shell. Number 3, how to stroke it in a straight line. Number 4, how to turn it around so we can come back home. The whole key to survival in a rowing shell is basically controlled by these oars right here. They control the stability, they control the power, they basically are everything you need to be able to handle this shell from day one. If you'll notice, this shell has a very round bottom, rolls. It reacts very quickly to any change in movement from one side to the other. But if I bring these blades together and I tie the 2 grips as if they were tied together, then this locks this boat in place, makes it a very stable boat. So anytime I need stability in a rowing shell, I always bring the 2 grips together, lock them as if they were tied together, and then I have a very stable boat. So I know I need that before I do anything, even getting in and out of the shell. So what I would do is bring the oars to the ready position, meaning grip over grip. I would take my one hand, grab the 2 grips, hold them together like so. I'd slide the seat back out of my way, take the leg closest to the shell, put it right down in the center between the 2 seat tracks, and then with this hand holding the 2 grips and this hand just balancing myself, I want to just go ahead and step into the shell like this. The key is not to stand up and come down. You want to get the center of effort down inside this shell as quickly as possible. It's like standing on the top of a mast and trying to balance yourself. So you just want to come straight over that splashboard, not standing up and coming down, but rolling over. Once I bring this other foot in, then you'll see it's very important to have both blades on the water and locked, because now they've taken over. If I let go of this, you'll see it's very tippy. So I go ahead and I hold the oars together with one hand. I go ahead and get situated in my seat. If I needed 2 hands to work with, what I would do is move my knees in front of the 2 blades, slide on up until the oars are right up against my chest, and then I can take both hands and lay them over the oars like so, locking them up in my armpits. Here you'll see now I've got 2 hands and I'm still very stable. The boat's not going anywhere. This would give me 2 hands to work should I need it. And then I would reach back, grab the 2 oars, slide on back out of it, ready to go. Okay, same with getting out. I go ahead and take one leg, put it down between the 2 tracks, take the other leg, head out to try and start finding the shore. I take this hand, make sure I've got both grips locked together. I usually take my other hand and grab this rigger to help me to lift up. As soon as I lift out, I just roll right out and find the shore again. Okay? Go ahead and try it. Grab the 2 oars together, take the leg closest to the shell, put it in between the tracks, and then just go ahead and slide on in, down in the shell, like so. Bring the other foot in. Be sure to keep hold of both oars. Go ahead and let's now check the 3rd adjustment that we talked about on shore. That is the proper placement of this foot assembly for the length of your legs. Go ahead and just set your foot in that cup just so we can get a mark. The way we check this adjustment is to go ahead and put your other foot in there, is to slide all the way back, legs fully extended. If you were hitting the end of the track, that would tell me that the feet are too far towards you, so you would need to move the feet back away. If they're too far forward, when this one grip, go ahead and let go of these 2 and let me take one grip. This, go ahead and put a hand over this grip, put your thumb over the end. What we would do is slide this in, and that should just graze your stomach, just like that. What that is basically to tell you not to go past your stomach. Here you lose the stability of that oar. So this is just about where we want it. So every time you pull in, that will just graze your stomach slightly to tell you that's the end of your stroke to go ahead and head back out. So this looks pretty good. So go ahead and grab this other oar. We'll go ahead and get the foot straps on. They don't have to be tight, just slightly snug, just enough to keep you in there and have a pretty good feel for it. Okay, and I'm going to slide you out a little bit so you can get a feel for this boat. Now, what I want you to do is take a hand and put a hand around each grip. Slide your hands all the way out to the end of the grip. Put your thumb over the ends, okay? Go ahead and lay the blades down in the water so you can feel the water, down like so. Now, what I want you to do is split these blades apart a little bit. I want you to feel the stability of this boat. Just go ahead and split one up and one down. There you go. Feel that boat, how it reacts rather quickly to the oar splitting. But if you bring the blades together like that and pretend your wrists are tied behind your back, locking those blades on the water, if I tried to flip you, you see you can fight me. No matter what I try and do, if I lean this way, you can bring it back down. If I lean to the other way, you can bring it back down. Go ahead and do this in the shell. Feel that you're quite safe as long as those are locked. You can move around in there fairly easy. That is your safety button in rowing. Should anything feel funny out there while you're rowing, let's say a boat flies by and throws up a wake, or you dig an oar too deep, or the oars split apart like that, the thing you should remember to do is tie your wrists immediately. Lock them on the water. What that essentially does is transform the beam of this shell from 2 feet to 20 feet. The blades naturally float, so they act like pontoons out there. And it'll create a 20-foot beam in essence, which is impossible to flip over. So you're actually very, very safe in a rowing shell as long as you know that trick. So we want to keep the blades on the water all the time. While we're learning to row, we actually use them in a training wheel sense, leaving them on the water so the body doesn't have to worry about the balance day one. Okay? Now there's two things that we want to break, essentially. These are old habits that you have from rowing rowboats in the past. We just learned that, number one, these blades control the stability of a rowing shell. So we want to leave those blades on the water all the time. When you've ever rowed a rowboat or a canoe or kayak, you're used to a roly-poly motion of rowing. What we want to do is change that habit to a straight out and straight in motion, because I want to keep that blade as close to the water as possible. When your hand, if my hand was the blade, I'm used to digging deep down and coming out, digging under and coming out in rowing. What we want to do now is change that to a straight across and a straight back. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave the blade on the water through the entire stroke. I'll pull straight through, I will turn it flat and just ski it back. As long as that blade has contact with the water, I have total control of the stability of this boat. When it comes out of the water, then the body has to take over. Today, this may feel very awkward because you've never done it before, so let's let the blades do the work for us while the body gets acclimated to rowing. That's one thing we got to work on. Second thing is, we're used to always pulling a boat in a manually powered craft. We're used to planting that paddle or that oar and pulling ourselves towards it. Well, in a rowing shell, they came up with the concept of a sliding seat. What that essentially does is transform the power, or transfer the power from the upper body to the lower body. So I don't pull a rowing shell, I actually push it with my legs. If you split the body right in half, you would actually, the lower body would control the power and the thrust. The upper body controls the balance of a rowing shell. So I don't have to pull these oars. I literally drag the oars. The easiest way to make sure that you push instead of pull, to break that old habit, is to lock your elbows. If they're locked, then they can't pull. Only when I go and break this niche right here does the upper body want to start pulling. So if I leave the elbows locked, then the only thing that has power left in it is my leg. So those two things are what we want to concentrate on while I'm going through the stroke here. Okay, the beginning of your stroke, slide on up towards me, send your hands out in front of your knees, turn the blades so they're straight up and down, cup towards me, the other way, there you go. Turn them a little so they're straight up and down, perpendicular to the water. There you go. And then turn your wrists so your wrists are flat and your thumbs are out over the end, just like so. It should be a nice, comfortable feeling. That's the beginning of your rowing stroke right there. So you'll always return to that position. So if you make a memory note of that, you can always go back to it. And you should feel comfortable. You shouldn't be leaning over. Everything should be nice and in a comfortable position, nothing out of whack. That's the one joy of rowing, is it's a very reflexive, very non-fatiguing, non-weight-bearing motion. So if you find comfortable positions, 9 times out of 10, you're doing it right. Okay, now what I want you to do is very slowly, I'm going to talk you through the stroke so you get a feel for what we're doing here. Remember, I want to keep the arms, I want to keep these two hands together. I want to leave my arms locked out, so I'll push. And remember, when you start heading back, they're going to be coming closer and closer together. So remember to bring the left hand over top the right hand, or your thumbs, and you learn real quick. Okay? So very slowly now, start pushing with your legs and start heading straight back. And then just bring the arms along with it, left hand over the right hand. And when the legs are down, then you break the elbows. When you come in front of your gut, you stop, you go knuckles up. Just twist your knuckles up. See what that did to the blades. Turn them flat on the water. Then you go ahead and start shoving the hands out in front of you, essentially skiing the blades, and then follow your hands back to the beginning of the stroke. When you get back to the beginning, you go wrist flat again, which brings the blade straight up and down again, and you're ready to do another stroke. Go ahead and try a few of those while I hang on to the boat. The key is to remember to leave the blades down on the water. Just let them float. Turn them straight up and down, and you want to drag them, not pull them. So you want to actually push the boat rather than pull it. A feeling you should be receiving up here at the beginning of your stroke is as if your arms were being pulled right out of this socket. That lets you know that you're dragging rather than pulling. You're doing real well. Try a few more while I hang on to the boat. Right in front of the gut, knuckles up, and ski back. The technical term is called feathering, but knuckles up makes a lot more sense. Essentially, that's what you're doing. Pull straight through, come in front of the gut, knuckles up, and ski them back. Now just let them float. See how that one, your left one went underwater? All that was because you tried too hard to get that blade out of the water. If you just relax at the end of your stroke and just turn your knuckles, they'll float right to the surface. If you let go of those blades right now, they would naturally float. So the key thing there to remember is at the end of the stroke, just relax. Essentially, the only thing that moves at the end of my stroke are the wrists. I just turn those wrists, knuckles up, and just ski them right straight back. Go ahead and try a couple more. Flick and float. That's a good turn to remember there too. At the end of your stroke, you just flick your wrist and listen to that blade slap the water. You'll know then you're on the water, ready to just float them back. Flick and float. Okay, let me show you something here in this blade. You'll see that this oar is round with a flat back. This oarlock is also round with a flat back. So every time you come up to the beginning position and you turn this blade ready to start your stroke again, you feel that little niche in the oarlock right there? Yeah. It just lays up flat against there. You can feel that. That's a built-in memory minder, so you don't have to always look out there to see if that blade is straight up and down, ready to row again. All you got to do is feel for that niche. The very first thing I do when I row up to the beginning of my stroke is feel for the niche and start pushing back. Okay? Try it a couple of times and see if you can feel that. Knuckles up, flick and float, ski them back towards you, slide on up. And when you turn them until you feel them fall into the niche. Feel it? Essentially what you're doing is you're making sure that the blade is straight up and down in the water before you start dragging it through. If it's at an angle, either inverted or exverted angle, it's going to either want to slice water, mean head down, or it's going to want to spit out. If it's a straight up and down motion, perpendicular to the water, then it's very easy to drag it straight back. It also keeps it right at the water level, so at the end of my stroke, it's very easy to just flick that wrist and ski it back. So it's actually been designed and built in there to make rowing easier for you. You just got to find the niche and then drag it straight back. Go ahead and try a couple more. Notice one thing right here. You see how your oar is sliding up like this out of that butted up area here? That's why your thumb is out over the end of your grip like this, to keep those blades locked up against the oar lock. You're actually doing a half moon motion instead of a straight out and straight in. It's a tendency to, once you get here, to bring them straight back to your gut and you start pulling them in. But if the thumbs always keep a little tension against the oar lock, then they'll stay butted up against that lock and pin. Okay, go ahead and slide up towards me. Bring your hands up like so. Oars straight down, wrists flat, thumbs over the end. You're ready to go. Nice and easy. Go ahead and push with your legs. Bring the hands in, straight into the gut. Flick, and ski them back towards me. Remember to keep them together and just let them float on the water. So you just relax on the return. Then you turn them back down, find the niche, and head out. Okay, turn the wrist, slide towards me, looking good. Flick and float, slide them up towards me, there you go. You notice how that right blade came out of the water? That's because when you got to here, instead of just flicking the wrist, you did hands and wrists down. When you went down, the blade came up out of the water and we lost our stability. So the thing to do is, at the very end of your stroke, go ahead and pull into the stroke, just turn the wrist, the only thing. See that? And then just left the blades on the water. So then you can ski them right back out towards me. Find the niche, let the legs do the work, and the arms just control the balance. Just ski them straight on back. Looking good. Okay. If you wanted to stop the boat, you would turn both blades straight up. Go ahead and you grab the oars. Just hang on and want to feel what I'm doing. Turn them straight up, and they act like rudders. They'll stop the boat. Now, to turn the boat, there's two methods of doing it. The easy method is to leave one blade just out there like a rudder. Just hold it against your knee here, like this, and then we'll do little tiny strokes with the other hand. You'll just pull on in towards your body, and then flick and float it back. Just little tiny turns, little tiny strokes like this. In turning the shell, this is the only time that we allow you to use your upper body. Notice you don't have to slide in the seat. You can just sit still and go ahead and turn this boat with the arms. This method here essentially turns the shell in an arc. If we wanted to turn it on a dime, there's another method that we use. Let me get this boat straight and I'll show you how to do it here. The second method of turning is a little more advanced. It turns the boat right on the dime where we're sitting. What I don't do is teach the in and out method like you did in an old rowboat, because we realize that the boat is controlled by these two blades being very close to one another, so we don't want to split them apart, especially while we're learning. So what you do is you take the oars, put them in exactly the same position that you were to start stroking. Then what you do is turn the blade, one blade, 90 degrees, and just lay it flat. Okay, now we're going to do the same exact thing we did to stroke the shell in a straight line. You come on in with both hands, pulling in. When you get into your gut, you do knuckles up on both of them. See what it did? Now it turned the other blade out of the water, and on the return, the blade that was flat will push water. Go ahead and slide up towards with me. Here we go. Okay, then we turn the wrist back flat again, and we're ready to head down. You'll see what we're doing is we're pulling with one oar, knuckles up, pushing with the other one. Knuckles flat, pulling with one oar, knuckles up, pushing with the other one. You'll see that what this is doing is turning this blade, or this shell, right on a dime, right where we sit. And it's just there again, if you do little tiny strokes, that'll give you a better feel for what we're doing. As you get better at it, then you can start increasing your strokes. Now you're headed on into shore. Notice that I'm seeing where we're going. You have your back to where we're rowing. Tomorrow I won't be in this shell, you'll be soloing. So what you need to do is, every once in a while, you need to look over your shoulder to see where you are. The best time to look is when these hands are close to one another, because you can lock them when you look. So it's towards the end of the stroke is when I take a look over my shoulder to see where I'm at. I don't look out here because my hands are split apart, and it's natural when I look to one side, you want to kind of drop that shoulder and you'll feel the boat rock. So the best time to look where you're going is when you're almost near the end of the stroke, meaning the hands are close to each other, so you can tie them and take a quick look. Okay. Go ahead and push on in. There you go. Knuckles down with each stroke. Just let them slide back as we come into shore. Try and watch for these rocks here. Okay, turn it up. Okay, go ahead and lock the two wrists together. Hold the boat secure while I get out. Now, once you get out the same way you got in, go ahead and grab both of them with one hand. Slide your feet on out. That's right, put that foot on the inside. Go ahead and try and find water and just kind of lift yourself right on out. That's all there is to it. Okay, the next thing I want to do is show you how to properly launch a boat from a dock, and then I'm going to go ahead and head out there and show you a couple of proper techniques in fine-tuning the 4 basics that we just taught you. Okay? All righty. If you did not have a beach area to work on, the proper way to work off of a dock is to use the boat, bring the shell out towards the end of the dock like so. If you notice, what I've done is I've put the rigger, or I've put the corner of this dock right in the corner of this rigger and the shell, like so the two would match one another right here. Basically what I'm doing is I want to be sure I can have both oars. Remember what we learned about having the oars in the ready position. I want to have both oars in the ready position so I can get in and out of this shell. So I use the corner of the dock and this corner in the shell and rigger configuration right here, so I can have both oars locked so I can get in and out of this rowing shell like so. Should I be launching this boat from the dock area, I would bring it, I'd lay it right out towards the end of the dock, and I'd slide it back in to this position right here. Then I'd go ahead and put my oars into my oar locks, lock them down in, and then I would bring the two grips together like so, and grab them so they're locked. Now the boat is locked, so I can go ahead and get in and out of this shell. Notice that the seat is always right here at the very corner, so I don't have to reach out or lean over. Nice and simple. Okay? Good. Okay, so that's basically how to get in and out of a shell from a dock area. Now I'm going to go ahead and row out there. I want you to watch me. I'm going to show you how to fine-tune those 4 basics that we just worked on. Basically, it's just practicing getting to feel more comfortable and more accomplished in the shell so it becomes more natural to you. Okay. Basically, we learned the fine-tuning, or we learned the basic stroke of using the legs for power and using the upper body for proper balance. What we want to do now is, when I originally taught you about gripping this oar, we want to start releasing this grip a little bit, because when you grip an oar, you're causing a lot of pressure and unnecessary power in the upper body. What we want to do is start turning the grip into a hook. Basically what you'll do is you'll shape your hand in the shape of a hook, and you'll actually hook around the oar grip rather than gripping it tightly. With the hands in a hook position, the blades, basically what you're doing is you're just dragging these blades straight back. This is forcing, there again, my legs to use as much power as it has in them. All I'm doing is, you see, I actually lift up my palms of my hands and I literally drag the oar straight back. When I get to my gut, I knuckles up and I just ski them straight back out. So I'm using a hook motion rather than a grip, forcing my legs to use more power, as you can see. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we want to start working on a counting sequence for our stroke. As you've learned your proper sequence of in and out, what we want to do now is put together a count for it so we can, there again, not wear ourselves out to get a proper workout. What I use is a 2-3 count. What that means is for every 2 counts through the stroke, 1, 2, I use 3 counts to return. What that does is it allows, if you'll notice, the pulling the boat like through the stroke allows it to glide. So I'm just allowing it to glide a little further, because once I start returning, I'm working against the boat, and it's called checking. So I'm just allowing it to glide a little further. I'm also using a 3 count to return, giving me more time to relax. If I allow this boat to glide, using less time to return it, essentially what I will do is need less strokes to get from point A to point B. So let me show you here how this will work. At the beginning of my stroke, I'm going to take it nice and easy. I'm going to use a 2 count through the drive, and I'm going to use a 3 count on the return. So I set my oars, I go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You notice I'm just letting the boat glide, taking my time to return back to the beginning position. That's a good method to use also in a race, because while you're exerting all your pressure and power to win this race, it's a good strategy move to save that power to the end of the race, meaning the sprint. And it also basically needs less strokes to get towards the end of from point A to point B. I'll use maybe 20 strokes instead of 30 strokes a minute to cover the same amount of ground, letting the boat glide. I gave it all the power in the drive. Let's go ahead and use that power and just let it glide. Okay, with the boat moving, should I want to stop the boat, I simply turn both blades straight up and actually push water. Feel the force of the blades being forced the opposite direction of the boat, and I just push them to a halt. Come to a stop, then I can go ahead and do my turn. Remember, we put both blades in the original position, turn one blade flat, 90 degrees, and go ahead and do the same thing we did to stroke in a straight line. What I'm essentially doing is pulling with one hand, feathering, and then pushing with the other. Pulling with one hand, pushing with the other. As you see, this will turn the boat right on a dime. I'm also moving my hands in the exact same motion that I had to do to stroke this shell in a straight line. As you can see, it turns the shell right on a dime, so when I'm in cramped quarters, it works very well. Once I see where I'm ready in the direction I want to go, I go ahead and bring both blades back to the original position, get ready to catch, and I'm ready to row again. Notice the time to look over your shoulders right towards the end of the stroke. When my hands were touching one over the other, I can take a quick gander to see where I'm going. Ensuring to use my legs for drive, not arms. The arms just finish the stroke. Nice and simple. In conclusion, the basic fundamentals that we went through today should ensure proper habits and good technique in recreational rowing from here on out. It is important to learn these facts. I think you'll enjoy rowing to be able to add many more years of performance and pleasure in this exciting sport of recreational rowing. Thank you and happy rowing.